Hello, my topic is mining water usage, and I will be describing some of the environmental concerns associated with mining water usage, as well as some of the things that can be done to remedy the problem. Now, there are two types of mining. The first is subsurface mining, which is what we normally think about when we think about mining. But there's also surface mining, which, according to a government source, accounts for 85% of mining, including petroleum and natural gas, which are two of some of the largest resource sectors in the United States. So surface mining is where we normally see a bunch of these water concerns and water usage concerns. The main concerns associated with water usage in mining include erosion, the loss of biodiversity, and groundwater contamination. Now, erosion and loss of biodiversity are usually caused by the dumping of wastewater associated with mining. This can be from various sources, particularly in natural gas and petroleum mining. The use of water in hydraulic fracturing is a source of dumping, and I'll detail that a little later. Groundwater contamination refers to water which contaminates the water table under where the resources are mined, directly or indirectly from dumping. So now I will talk a little bit about the process of dumping in the next section. I will now talk about the process which causes some environmental concerns, including wastewater. Part of the process of hydraulic fracturing is the use of a large amount of water to widen cracks in the rock layer to allow for better extraction. The fracturing of wells requires large amounts of water, and in some areas of the country, significant use of water for shale gas production may affect the availability of water for other uses and can negatively affect aquatic habitats, both freshwater and saline. If mismanaged, the fracturing fluid, which can contain hazardous chemicals, can be released in spills, leaks, and bad well construction, and such releases can contaminate the surrounding areas. According to the United States Geological Survey, hydraulic fracturing causes small earthquakes, but they are almost always too small to be a safety concern. In addition to natural gas, fracking fluids and formation waters are returned to the surface. These wastewaters are frequently disposed of by injection into deep wells. The injection of wastewater into subsurface can cause earthquakes that are large enough to be felt and may cause damage. More obvious than the kind of far-fetched earthquake analysis of the problems with hydraulic fracturing, the EIA specifically mentions some of the wastewater problems involved with hydraulic fracturing, which is used to extract natural gas. And so finding a solution to these problems and using the tools at our disposal to figure out the best way to curb that kind of waste while still continuing to drill for natural gas are going to be critical in the next decade. I will now talk a little bit about some of the concerns surrounding mining water usage and some of the things that can come across from the heavy use of water in mining. So I talked a little bit earlier about erosion as a concern associated with mining water usage. Perhaps the most high-profile example of this erosion from mining can be seen at the OK Teddy mine. I guess that might be Ok Teddy or maybe Oak. I don't know. It's in New Guinea, Papua New Guinea, and it was operated by Broken Hill Proprietary, which is an Australian mining company. And it was a gold and copper mine, and this happened in the late 90s, and it took a while for the company that ran it to admit that the mine was an environmental disaster. Basically what happened was they were dumping mine waste for well over a decade, and it flowed down the river that they got the water from this mine, and it destroyed food gardens, fishing grounds, villages, and the company that operated it ran an advertising campaign that claimed that 90 million tons of mine waste it dumped each year into the river were virtually identical to natural sediment. Afterwards, they admitted their error when the water that was dumped began eroding the coastlines and, of course, destroying everything around it, and created a huge problem for the local populace. Another effect of mining water usage comes from the loss of biodiversity that stems from the dumping of water into streams. This is a particular problem in the Appalachian region. I detailed some of the mining in the Appalachian region, which includes eastern Kentucky, West Virginia, and southwestern Virginia, in my last video called Mountaintop Removal Mining. And some of the waste from mountaintop removal mining comes in an area with some of the highest biodiversity in North America, including several endangered species. The burial of headwater streams by valley fills causes permanent loss of ecosystems, which are critical in ecological processes such as nutrient cycling and the production of organic matter for downstream food webs. And so these Appalachian streams, which the water is being taken from and dumped back into, also support a lot of aquatic organisms, like I said, including many endangered species. And some statistics from an article by Policy Forum from data collected by the University of Maryland Center for Environmental Science estimates that 5 to 10% of a watershed's area is affected by these anthropogenic activities, and stream biodiversity and water equality definitely suffer from that. So one of the largest problems associated with the use of water in mining comes from groundwater contamination. And this is a particular problem when we talk about petroleum and natural gas mining, because the process of hydraulic fracturing uses thousands of gallons of water in order to widen the cracks in shale plays to release more natural gas. In April 10th, 2012, the EPA made the first connection from the first ever link between hydraulic fracturing and groundwater contamination, and this comes after a very high-profile movie called Gasland, which turned public opinion away from natural gas because of this groundwater contamination. So despite that movie coming out earlier, this is the first connection a government agency has made with hydraulic fracturing and groundwater contamination. Now, conversely, a day later, the EPA made the conclusion that there was no groundwater contamination from hydraulic fracturing in the Marcellus Shale in Pennsylvania, despite residents thinking there was. So the kind of paradoxical decisions here made by the EPA are kind of a subject of debate, which really shows the polarization in the entire natural gas industry, whether or not we should go ahead with this rather than and ignore the environmental concerns, or if we should stick with the environmental concerns and not follow the same pathway as oil. According to the EIA, the United States could be a net exporter of natural gas by 2020, which of course has some very serious economic benefits. So finding a way to remedy these problems and find a good middle ground is something that will definitely have to happen, at least in the next decade. So it can be definitely seen that the extensive use of water in mining, particularly in hydraulic fracturing, is generally unfavorable in the court of public opinion, and as such there have been a lot of ways that legislators have tried to regulate hydraulic fracturing specifically, especially in New York. A Huffington Post article recently reported on a federal judge upholding the legislation to ban hydraulic fracturing in the state of New York, which has a large concentration of natural gas as well as petroleum in the Marcellus Shale, which also spills over into Pennsylvania. Despite this, the United States still has the largest amount of natural gas in the entire world, and it could have great economic benefits to begin exporting natural gas. So finding a favorable balance between environmental concerns and economic concerns is going to be crucial for understanding the future of natural gas and mining as a whole. Now, personally, I'd rather not advocate for legislation, but for the purposes of this assignment, a lot of solutions do include things such as legislation like we saw in New York, as well as the Safe Water Act, which has been used to justify a lot of the regulations placed on larger natural gas companies. So this ends my presentation on mining water usage. As you can see, just as a recap, there's a lot that needs to be done. Some of the concerns related to mining water usage include erosion, the loss of biodiversity, and groundwater contamination. And mining is a huge industry in the United States and uses a huge amount of water, so this is definitely something that needs to be looked at. Thank you.